Hello YouTubers, I want to welcome you to another edition of Bargain Bin Amps. Okay, now, this is a little bit off the beaten path, but bear with me here. Now I'm a guitarist, I play guitar, right? And well, I do a lot of solo playing as far as, you know, just playing by myself and emulating bass on guitar. Okay, and, you know, you could use drum machines and those kind of things. They sometimes call it one-man band, but I really hate that connotation. Right? It's not like you strap on a damn bass drum on your back, you know. I hate that one-man band thing. Okay, besides the point. Now, just like I've discovered that, you know, if you're using a drum machine or something like that, and you're running it through a guitar amp, right? It's just not going to sound very good. And by the same token, it's the same thing with bass emulation. If you use an octave pedal or what have you, it's just not going to sound like a bass, you know, when you're running it through a guitar amp. And part of that is because the speaker, for one, can't really handle it, you know. Now, I hope you subscribed, because I often reference old videos, and I did a video on this bass amp that I got, which was a Hartkey HD150, and man, I just love that thing. It has a big old 15-inch speaker and like a little horn thing, but my goodness. Now, you know, you play even on guitar, you know, with an octave pedal or a bass emulator of some sort. Often I use the Bass 9 from EHX, right? Electro Harmonics Bass 9. I use that often, but you can use octave pedals, like the Boss is a real popular one. The Boss pedal, OC5 or something like that, or the TC Electronics Sub and Up pedal that you find in the plethora. I really like all of those. In any case, man, you hit an E string, you know, low E, and my goodness, it's earth-shakingly huge, big bass sound, okay? And I've often thought to myself, you know, that would work really well, a bass amp, you know, and it does. But if you think about it, a bass amp is really a solid-state power amp, a preamp, and then a 15-inch speaker. And so I was wondering, you know, what couldn't you get that from a PA? Right? Have a small PA, and the advantage was if you were running any kind of drum machines or anything like that, you could run those into it as well, right? Because basically, you know, a little PA head, and I'm sure you've seen them, there's a little, I think PV makes most of them. They're basically little mini PAs. They basically have a mixer, effects, you know, equalizers, and then a power amp section, you know, and then usually they have PA speakers, you know. When you go to a concert, they can be huge or tiny. I mean, you can have a 100-watt PA system or a 50,000-watt PA system, you know. Now, for my purposes, obviously I wouldn't need a 50,000 watt PA system. However, I thought that you could get convincing bass, and I have one of these little powered PA heads, but it's just not very powerful at all. So I'm not sure exactly how many watts it is, but it's very small. So then, basically, and they're so inexpensive, by the way. And you always get saps. Well, man, I went to a whatever garage sale. Oh man, I picked one up for $15. Picked up this Fender Stratocaster. I think it was $2. Yeah, okay, whatever. In any case, but they are very inexpensive. And I mean, we're talking, I think new, they were like $2.99, $3.99, $4.99, somewhere in that range. And basically, the mixer had, anywhere from 4 channels to, however many you want, really. And now they have digital ones and so on. But for my purpose, I don't want to get too heavily into it, but I thought, well, if I could find one a little more powerful, and just see if it could handle the bass duties where you wouldn't need a bass amp, and would it sound as good? So I searched around, and sure enough, locally I found a real inexpensive one, and we can take a look at it here. Alright, now here's the unit, PV XR600G. It's actually a pretty small unit, very convenient, right? And you have, on your left is the mixing section right here, right? And so basically you've got seven channels in a way. The first 4 are mono, right here, just like on a mixer, standard mixer. Then you've got 2 stereo channels, 5 and 6, right? And then the 7th channel, which we'll get to later. Okay, and the idea is, you would plug your bass emulation out into this, and then you can send it to your monitor output right here, or your mains output, right? And then you got EQs that affects each, this affects the mains in stereo, this affects the monitor output. And here's the effects section. It just has some reverbs and things. It doesn't work on this unit at all. Not that big a deal, I guess. Would have been fun to mess around with that, but not necessarily needed, I guess. And then here, kind of foot switch stuff. You've got, you can plug in some external power amps and those kinds of things. Okay, anyway, so going down, you've got effects level, right? But since it doesn't work, it doesn't do anything. Then you have a 3-band EQ right here, just high, mid, bass. And then here, monitor level and mains level, right here. And then you have a pad section if you need it, or just lowers it. And you've got 1/4 inch or XLR inputs, right? And really, for the bass emulation, you'd only be using one of those, okay? And on the back, there's 4 speaker jacks, right? 2 for the mains, in other words, left and right main, and then 2 for the monitor left and right. There we go. And it's got a little fan, turns on sometimes, but it's not very loud. Okay, and it's hooked up to this PA cabinet, which has a big old 15. I don't know what it is. It's it's got these cheapo Radio Shack looking horns. Anyway, they're really inexpensive, run-of-the-mill PA cabs. So that'll be interesting to see what that does. So there you go. Now you've got some cool stuff, I guess. The feedback detection, and it also has a thing to protect the speaker, if it's gonna overload and those kinds of things. So in that sense, it's very nice. It's not too bad, I just wish that the effects section would work. And then some of the pots, of course, were a little scratchy, but that's just, I used some contact cleaner, try to clean them up, and it did a pretty good job, but usually you're not going to move those around too much, once you have them set. Alright, so there's the PB XR600G, very, very inexpensive, and pretty cool and pretty handy. So that's pretty cool, and the price was definitely right. I mean, it was like, even less than $150 or something, less than that. So, you couldn't ask for much. I got the kind of the usual story. Oh, it came out of a church and so on and so on. So, first thing I did is hook it up to this PA cabinet. I've got two of these PA cabinets. I only hooked up one so far, just to see if this was worth pursuing or not, or if it just couldn't handle it, or you get a puny sound, kind of like the bass through the guitar, bass emulation through the guitar amp. It's just not convincing. It doesn't really work very well. So, whereas I love it when it goes through the bass amp. The logistics of it, to set it up, is, you could use a splitter, right? And you could split it that way and get it into the PA head, but it also has to go to your guitar cabinet, and you don't want it messing up your guitar sound. And my solution was a crossover, these little crossover boxes, and I did some videos on those as well. And I'll tell you this much, someone put in the comments that those were a waste of money, but as I've discovered, that is not the case. Far from it. Because when I run the bass emulation off the, let's say the Electro Harmonix Bass 9, right? Well, the guitar speaker just can't handle it. It starts to distort the speaker and things because it just can't handle that low end. Whereas with this little crossover box, right, you can send the lower frequencies to a separate channel, right? It splits the signal between a bass and a guitar signal, depending on the frequency range. Okay, what that does is it alleviates those guitar speakers from breaking up, first of all, but also gives you two different signals. So if you want to run the low end to a bass amp, you could do that, or instead of a bass amp, try it with a PA speaker, a little mini PA speaker, and that's what I'm doing here. So let's take a listen to it. Now, my setup here is I have the guitar, and it's running through my little crossover boxes. If you haven't been following the channel and subscribing, you won't know what those are. I did videos on them. So the little crossover boxes, they split the signal between a low channel and a high channel. High channels are going to the amps, the guitar amps, so you just get this. And this has no effects or anything, just... right? So just real plain. Okay? Now, here's something unbelievable. Watch this. And I'm exaggerating here. Usually I have the low on the crossover box to the middle level, you know, about like that. But here I've got it turned all the way up. Okay, make sure you can hear it on the amp. And check this out. This is crazy. This is running through the, you know, the channel 1 of this little mixer box, you know, powered amp, and running into just a PA cabinet. I'm not even sure what it is, but it has a 15-inch woofer. That's always good. But it also has these horns, and I bet they're cruddy. I should probably turn those off. Okay, now so I'm going to turn on my bass emulation pedal. This is just a Electro-Harmonix Bass 9. Okay. And check this out. No bass amp, no nothing. It's going to channel 1. Everything is on 5. And believe me, you can customize the sound with the EQ and things. But my goodness, listen to this. It's crazy. Right? Oh my God. That's just gigantic. I mean, this is a, 200 watts. And that's just running through one of these things. I mean, you know that it's huge when it's freaking shaking stuff, in the room. Hear that? Yeah. Wow. That's incredibly loud. Now, what's funny is, because of the crossover boxes, on the low strings, because it's so huge, it's actually going through the little PA speaker right here. But if I play it too high, it switches over to the guitar amps. You can hear it. Listen to this. Sounds going through the guitar amp. So I play that here. And I mean, you could switch, the crossover frequency. So let's try it in a loop, which is what I'm planning to use it for. Okay, so we'll play that. And now I'll do a loop on the bass. manipulate, the bass sound here. And just as a test, let me turn off the bass. Turn off this thing and see what we get. Where's the bass? That's sad. Turn the bass up. I'll mess with the EQ and stuff a little bit. Okay, I've messed around with the settings a little bit, just trying out stuff. Now keep in mind, this is only one PA speaker. If you add two, my goodness. See here, it's a lot more balanced, I think, than it was, And that's the thing, you gotta set the settings correctly, which I haven't really done. I'm just messing around with it. Wow. Let's get rid of that synthesizer. Well, I thought I did. There's the guitar again. Let's try the bass again. That's just huge, man. Yeah, I hear all kinds of vibration. It's vibrating the table, all kinds of stuff. So that I could EQ that out, that kind of thing. I'm just trying this out. Wow. So we could loop that. The bass is pretty well balanced, you know. Now, there's one thing I discovered is that it's very possible that the effects aren't working on this thing. The built-in effects they have, which is fine. I don't need them, you know. But take a listen to that. Wow. Yeah. And I mean, I don't even know what kind of PA speakers are in here, if they're worth anything, you know, who knows. mean, you could hone down the bass sound as much as you would want. Yeah, there it's going through the guitar speaker. And there through the bass amp. Wow. I mean, we could try some other sounds. Let's see. It's just huge. Alright, now I just wanted to show you, and I was just curious to see, here's drums from the loop station going into this PA thing. Here we go. Much bigger sound than through the guitar speaker, obviously. And you have a reverb and those kinds of things. Yeah, for example, we turned up the reverb even more. That's with the reverb at 100% from the pedal. There's no reverb. Different kind of patterns. Like here's what and here you can change the pattern or the drum kits. You know, that reminds me of the drums in Escape from New York. You've seen that film by John Carpenter. I remember the drums are very similar to this. Wow. Anyway. Okay, pretty cool. So, now obviously if you use that as a drum machine, right, the little loop station, you know, I mean, I guess you could play the loops that you record through this, you know, but I mean, if you're playing with tube amps and things, you know, you kind of want it to sound similar. And I mean, I've run into this, just setting up loop setups, you know, where basically you would run loops into the PA, you know, and then regular guitar through the tube amps, and it sounds so mismatched. It doesn't quite fit right, you know. Anyway, so you can basically run your bass through their drum machines, probably synths even, you know, I don't know. Remains to be seen. However, what an eye-opener it is, I'll tell you this much. Alright, now keep in mind, you know, this is kind of a specialized application rather than just a standard PA, because it's really just to provide bass sound, so that's why I got the big speaker and things. Now, I'm going to try this, and I haven't yet, is this. Here's a Fender, I think it's a Passport series PA speaker, and I mean, it's got a little tiny speaker here, you know, and a couple of tweeters and things. Really light, really small, you know, and I don't know what to expect, whether this will work as well, you know. That'd be pretty cool if it did, because it's awfully small and awfully light, you know. So we'll try that too, see if we can get a bass sound out of that, you know. I'd be quite surprised if you do, quite frankly. I mean, it's puny, but who knows? Worth a try. And remember, on the PA system, you know, you've got two channels, or you can hook up two speakers to it, basically. You know. Or in the one I have, the 600G there, the PV, you could hook up two main speakers and two monitor speakers, you know, so, and that gets plenty loud, but I don't know about this thing at all, you know, it's a little small. And part of the reason why I wanted to do this is because, you know, I have this big Fender Rumble 15-inch cabinet, which is, by the way, is very, very light, which is one of the big pluses of it. But I also have a Fender Rumble head, and the problem is it doesn't work, and I could either get it repaired, or, you know, maybe follow one of these alternative solutions, you know, get a bass combo or PA head mixer, that kind of thing. All kinds of possibilities here, so we'll see. Alright, now here I've got this little Fender Passport PA speaker, little tiny thing, and the sound isn't bad at all. I mean, it's actually, I'm impressed. Now if you compare that to, here's the same thing but coming out of the 15-inch PA, it's a totally different experience, of course. Huge big sound. And here's the little Fender Passport. If I turn that up a little more, if I turn that up, yeah, see, it just can't handle that. still not too bad. I mean, it's okay. Now, I don't know about you, but I think it's great. And it's every bit as big as the Hartke bass amp. The sound, and just as deep. You know, I have to admit I have a little preference for the Hartke, but I think that's personal bias. Oh, and one thing that I did do, and I didn't show it on film, is I have a Fender Rumble 15-inch cabinet. Okay, very much like a PA cabinet, but it's a Fender bass Rumble 15-inch speaker. And I run one of the channels of the PA head into that, and it was massive as well, you know. So that begs the question, do you need a bass amp? Can you get away with a PA? And my answer is, I think a bass amp is really great, very convenient, you know, and the sound is really great. I mean, it's just there, right? Whereas the PA, you're gonna have to work with it a little bit, but you can get an equally as big a sound. And in fact, one thing you could do even is take your bass line or your octave pedal, run that into a one of those bass DI boxes that basically is kind of like a bass preamp, and then run that into the PA, and you could get even more control over your sound. So in other words, there's a lot of different options. I think one of the big advantages, of course, of the PA, handling the low end, but it can also handle drums or even synthesizer or vocals, those kinds of things. You know, even if you're not singing and, you know, you're playing somewhere that doesn't have a PA, right? Where you could have a little personal PA that could handle it all that really well, you know. And this particular one, the 600G, has 2 amps in it, right? 2 200-watt amps, and 2 could go to monitors on the stage, right? So you could hear yourself pretty much, and then the main outs that go to PA speakers, you know, for the audience or what have you. Anyway, make a long story short, it's quite interesting. Now, this Fender Rumble 15-inch speaker cabinet, I could run that, you know, using a PA speaker, or even a power amp with a mixer. You could do it that way too. Or there's a little something called Class D power amps. I mean, these things are puny, little tiny things, and yet they're 200 watts and things. They're very powerful, and very inexpensive. For example, the TC Electronics BAM 200 is $169 new, right? I don't know if you could find a used one. I think so. Anyway, right? Pretty amazing. And that you could use to power a cabinet, a bass cabinet, or, right? Or it also works as a DI, direct input, you know. And you could run that into the PA as well, for, as they call it, further tone shaping. Sappy. Anyway, it's a very cool little unit, though. I think I'm tempted to try that, but it's so puny too. I mean, it fits in the palm of your hand, you know. Pretty amazing, and very inexpensive. I think, as I said, about 169 bucks. I guess depending on where you purchase it. So anyway, this leaves me a lot of different possibilities. I was quite surprised at how good it sounded with the PA, and I have to say the bass is massive. Every bit as big as the Hartke, you know. I don't know, there's something about the Hartke amp though that I just really like, you know, but the PA would work just as well. So that's what I wanted to try, and I think this little unit accomplishes that very well. And I'd be quite interested to see what it's like with both PA speakers. Now, I did hook up a PA speaker and the Fender Rumble 15-inch speaker. And I mean, the bass sound was gigantic, you know. I mean, you have to remember, you know, if you're going to be playing solo looping gigs, you know, you got to be responsible for not only the guitar sound, but synthesizer sound, bass emulation sounds, even drum sounds, possibly. You know, so with that, and let me tell you something. At least live, you want it to be quite simple, right? And that's what these little PA had to do. They're just quite simple, you know. And you can do a lot with them, you know, even just talking to the audience through a microphone or what have you, you know. And depending on what kind of PA you want to run, you know. Now, I've played live in the past where, you know, basically a concert was pretty much ruined sound-wise because of the sound man was terrible, you know. And I personally like stereo PAs, and a lot of these places they've got like a little mono PA and it sounds terrible. So nice to have your own, you know, maybe as a backup even, or as part of your setup, you know, or bass amps. And I mean, so it was a big revelation to me though, as far as whether to use a bass amp or a PA, and both can sound great. Another thing I'd mention is the size of the speaker, you know, and man, a 15-inch speaker can really handle those low ends, you know. Guitar speaker, forget it. Sounds puny, not convincing, you know. And PAs, you know, PA cabinets, you work just fine. The Fender Rumble cabinet, a 15-inch bass cabinet, did the job as well. I mean, just as big. I'm wondering about smaller PA cabs. I don't know. I'm not sure. I've only ever had 15-inch cabinets. I have a pair of Fender PA cabinets, and I would often use them for that kind of bass emulation, you know. As I remember, it's pretty good. So, and I'm not sure which I'm gonna go with, you know, maybe both. Because I just love that Hartke bass amp, you know. It's so simple, just flick a switch and that's it. It's ready to go. And it's just the perfect sound. And the PA, I guess, can be the same, you know, once you set it up. It takes a little bit more work, you know, because you gotta set the mixer settings and those kinds of things. I guess it'd be the same way on the bass amp. You've got to set the settings. Well, that was a very interesting experiment, and I'm very pleased that I have several possibilities. And that's the thing, I was thinking of getting a bass amp, another bass amp for the other studio room. However, maybe one of those little Class D power amps and use it as a DI, right? To give you that bass sound. going through a PA, little mini PA things, and they're not very inexpensive, especially used. But let me warn you, if you're buying used, it's, those little PAs and things, it's the equivalent of buying a mixer. And when you buy a used mixer, man, they've always got like scratchy channels. Oh, this channel doesn't work, but the one next to it does. Those kinds of things. That's why I'd be real careful buying a mixer. And those powered mixers, little PA things, same thing. And in fact, the one I got, luckily it serves my purposes, but I'll tell you what, the effects, all the built-in effects don't even work. Sad. And I had to use a lot of contact cleaner to try to get rid of the scratchy pots, and they just get old, and dust gets in there, and, it can cause problems. But, on a PA thing, once you have it set, you don't really move it all that often. But it'd still be nice not to have that, So there you go. I'd highly recommend it if you want to experiment, or, even if you have a little practice band, or in your practice room, or you play acoustic guitar and want to do shows and things, it's very, very nice to have your own little mini PA, because you never know. Man, I've played some places where the PA was terrible, if they had one at all. It's just so very convenient, you can plug things in if you want to try them out with the PA and things, Now, I guess you could run drum machines into a bass amp, but, remember, a bass amp is mono, and you want those drums in stereo, right? So that's where a PA would come in very handy. All right, anyways, so there you go. Very pleased, even though the built-in effects don't work, which is fine, because I don't want to rely on those to begin with. And quite frankly, for a bass sound, I really don't like effects on them too well. Alright, so there you go. Very good. See you next time. Okay.